I'll probably have to just try to fix this later, but let me see if I can just turn it just a tad bit more. Okay. All right. Well, welcome to another Lamp Bible Study. My name is James, your host and Bible reader for Lamp Bible Study. Like I said, I'm taking you along with me, and we are in the beautiful country of Panama. Can you believe it? Panama, we're at, I think it is called Playa Blanca. But we will be continuing on and picking up from Second Chronicles chapter 21. I was trying to remember exactly where we left off. But I hope and that we continue to seek the Lord's wisdom together through his holy word. And let's see here. Today has been a very good day. Yesterday was the day of travel to get here, and today I'm settled in and ready to continue with the Lamp Bible Study. And for those of you who first joining us, this is your first time joining us, hope and pray that we continue again to seek the Lord's wisdom together through his holy word, as well as this helps you. These Bible studies definitely help me. So we're going to pick right up in Second Chronicles chapter 21. So let's get started with today's Lamp Bible Study. Chapter 21. Then Jehoshaphat rested with his fathers and was buried with them in the city of David. And Jehoram his son succeeded him as king. Jehoram's brothers, the sons of Jehoshaphat, were Azariah, Jehiel, Zechariah, Azurihu, Michael, and Shephatai. Remember, this is the Old Testament, and a lot of these names are a little bit difficult to pronounce. So if you know the correct pronunciation, say them along with us. If you know how to type them out, just type them in the box, and thank you. All these were the sons of Jehoshaphat, king of Israel. Their father had given them many gifts of silver and gold and articles of value, as well as to fortified cities in Judah, but he had given the kingdom to Jehoram because he was his firstborn son. Just a quick review. Jehoshaphat he was king. He was king of Judah. Remember, Judah and Israel have split into two. And so Jehoshaphat was definitely devoted to the Lord. Made a few mistakes here and there, but still followed the Lord, especially compared to the king of Israel, who at that time was more pagan, more following other things than following the Lord. So Israel as a whole, a large chunk of it wasn't following the Lord, but Judah mostly somewhat was still at this time. So it just like the book of Kings, Second Chronicles kind of bounces back and forth between the kings of Judah and the kings of Israel. So right now we're going over again the kings of Judah. So that's where we're at currently, and how Jehoshaphat was helping the king of Israel, but that wasn't a good thing because Jehoshaphat didn't really seek the Lord on that decision. And that's what happens sometimes, and that's what happened in the previous Bible study we talked about. Is that, do we have to quickly choose things? And that answer is yes, we have to quickly choose things. Even in that quickness, though, we should still take a moment to seek the Lord and the Lord's guidance through prayer, through reading, through listening, having a conversation with the Lord. So think about that in your life. What kind of thoughts or feelings come to your mind? How does it make you feel, and what does it make you think? Let's continue to read. Joram, king of Judah. When Joram established himself firmly over his father's kingdom, he put all his brothers to the sword along with some of the princes of Israel. Joram was 32 years old when he became king, and he reigned in Jerusalem 8 years. He walked in the ways of the kings of Israel as the house of Ahab had done, for he married a daughter of Ahab. He did evil in the eyes of the Lord. Nevertheless, because of the covenant the Lord had made with David, the Lord was not willing to destroy the house of David. He had promised to maintain a lamp for him and his descendants forever. Ring a bell. He had promised to maintain a lamp for him and his descendants forever. Has a little bit to do with the title of our Bible study together, Lamp Bible Study, because we are seeking the Lord's wisdom together. And so, and I'm currently reading from an NIV Collegiate Bible. Forgot all that because, mine's a little off right now. Just, truthfully speaking. But at the same time, I'm still extremely humbled and grateful. So, let's continue to, or what kind of thoughts or feelings come to your mind as we read over this? How does it make you feel and what does it make you think? Let's continue to read. In the time of Joram, Edom rebelled against Judah and set up its own king. So Joram went there with his officers and all his chariots. The Edomites surrounded him and his chariot commanders, but he rose up and broke through by night. To this day, Edom has been in rebellion against Judah. Libnah revolted at the same time because Joram had forsaken the Lord, the God of his fathers. He had also built high places on the hills of Judah and had caused the people of Jerusalem to prostitute themselves and had led Judah astray. Joram received a letter from Elijah, the prophet, which said, oh, take note of this, because remember, Elijah, the prophet, so we're getting back into that. Elijah, and then Elisha. So Elijah came first. And take note of that, too, because that's going to come back up in the Bible, especially in the New Testament. This is what the Lord, the God of your father, David says. You have not walked in the ways of your father, Jehoshaphat, or of Asa, king of Judah, but you have walked in the ways of the kings of Israel, and you have led Judah and the people of Jerusalem to prostitute themselves, just as the house of Ahab did. You have also murdered your own brothers, members of your father's house, men who were better than you. So now the Lord is about to strike your people, your sons, your wives, and everything that is yours with a heavy blow. You yourself will be very ill with a lingering disease of the bowels until the disease causes your bowels to come out. Now remember, so I hear this a lot, like, why were all the people punished when one person did something? Think about it. Stop and think about it. This Jehoram was the ruler of Judah. So he was leading the people and leading them astray. So people were taking his example and doing what he did. So think about that. And so it's, yes, there's accountability, and that's where the the discipline is lying, especially for King Joram. However, the people as a whole together, and this has happened before, are also disciplined at the same time, because it's a reliance. It's a reminder who the authority comes from, who the reliance comes on. Like right now, a good example of right now. It's been raining, especially in the afternoon here in Panama, and from what I gather, rainy season lasts pretty much is every month except for January, February, March. So the reason I was praying, talking to God earlier, it was like, please let me have an hour today, because it wasn't raining this morning. Rain usually starts in the afternoon and then it lasts all the way till nightfall. So but I was like, please give me an hour. And look, behold, amen. So I knew that I was like, I got to do this, especially because it looks like it's going to rain again pretty quickly. So let's continue to read. Actually, before we go on, what kind of thoughts or feelings come to your mind about that? I just shared something, right? How does it make you feel and what does it make you think? Let's continue to read. The Lord aroused against Jehoram the hostility of the Philistines and of the Arabs who lived near the Cushites. They attacked Judah, invaded it, and carried off all the goods found in the king's palace, together with his sons and wives. Not a son was left to him except Ahaziah, the youngest. After all this, the Lord afflicted Jehoram with an incurable disease of the bowels. Oof, yeah, oof, goodness gracious. In the course of time, at the end of the second year, his bowels came out because of the disease, and he died in great pain. Oof, Lord Jesus. His people made no fire in his honor, as they had for his fathers. Joram was 32 years old when he became king, and he reigned in Jerusalem 8 years. He passed away to no one's regret, and was buried in the city of David, but not in the tombs of the kings. So there you go. He led he led Judah astray. He did quite a bit that was wrong, and the people recognized that, and the people, took note that they themselves were falling away. So nobody celebrated this person who was wicked, basically. You know, do I mean, think about it in history. I mean, past to present. Do we celebrate wicked people? No. Okay. So, okay, so this is take two for part of it because some of the recording, of course, some of the recording I won't be able to post because there's more than likely won't be able to post because there's music in the background. So let's continue to read. So I was talking about King Joram and how nobody, uh, he was leading Israel astray to the point where when people do evil and do things that are wrong, people do recognize it. And so communities and people under that leadership do recognize it. And so when that does happen, people will take note and they don't honor that person. You know, that person is not honored, especially in death. Um, like I was mentioning, we don't really celebrate people who do evil. We put them in our history books. Well, we have a nice book with that information here, full of wisdom. So let's continue to read. Uzziah, king of Judah. The people of Jerusalem made Uzziah, Joram's youngest son, king in his place, since the raiders who came with the Arabs into the camp had killed all the older sons. So Uzziah, son of Jehoram, king of Judah, began to reign. Okay, so I'm going to try to push this a little bit closer to me without messing this up, but I don't know if it's going to work. Okay. um, Isaiah was 22 years old when he became king, and he reigned in Jerusalem 1 year. His mother's name was Athaliah, and granddaughter of Omri. He too walked in the ways of the house of Ahab, for his mother encouraged him in doing wrong. He did evil in the eyes of the Lord, as the house of Ahab had done. For after his father's death, they became his advisors to his undoing. He also followed their counsel when he went with Joram, son of Ahab, king of Israel, to war against Hazael, king of Aram, at Ramoth Gilead. The Arameans wounded Joram, so he returned to Jezreel to recover from the wounds that they had inflicted on him at Ramoth in his battle with Hazael, king of Aram. Then Uzziah, son of Joram, king of Judah, went down to Jezreel to see Joram, son of Ahab, because he had been wounded. Through Uzziah's visit to Joram, God brought about Uzziah's downfall. When Uzziah arrived, he went out with Joram to meet Jehu, son of Nimshi, whom the Lord had anointed to destroy the house of Ahab. Remember, when we read in, I believe it was the book of Kings, I believe it might have been Second Kings, correct me if I'm wrong. Remember, all this happened. So again, this Chronicles, so it's a review of everything. While Jehu was executing judgment on the house of Ahab, he found the princes of Judah and the sons of Uzziah's relatives, who had been attending Uzziah, and he killed them. He then went in search of Uzziah, and his men captured him while he was hiding in Samaria. He was brought to Jehu and put to death. They buried him, for they said he was a son of Jehoshaphat, who sought the Lord with all his heart. So there was no one in the house of Uzziah powerful enough to retain the kingdom. And so basically, he didn't seek the Lord. He didn't seek the Lord's counsel, so this happened to him. Let's continue to read. Athaliah and Joash. When Athaliah, the mother of Uzziah, saw that her son was dead, she proceeded to destroy the whole royal family of the house of Judah. But Jehosheba, the daughter of King Joram, took Joash, son of Uzziah, and stole him away from among the royal princes who were about to be murdered, and put him and his nurse in a bedroom, because Jehosheba, Sheba, the daughter of Jehoiada, was Uzziah's sister. She hid the child with Athaliah, she hid the child from Athaliah, so she could not kill him. He remained hidden with them at the temple of God for 6 years while Athaliah ruled the land. And so, remember, Athaliah was just an evil person, wicked, did not follow the Lord, wanted to rule. It reminds me of a very current TV program where people, were fighting for rulership. They just wanted to be in authority. They wanted to have the power. And this person, Athalia, was one of those people, and she was evil. She was conniving, and all she cared about was power and um, in her own um, beliefs. So, and she used those beliefs to oppress people. Think about that. When we talk about the Lord, when we talk about our Savior Jesus, Jesus is about love. So when we do have knowledge, we're not to use that knowledge to one up somebody, feel like we're on top of the world, we're on top of somebody. Jesus, time and time again in the New Testament, said we are to serve, we're to show that love, to encourage people to understand where actual love comes from. And so, not one of us is better than the other. Think about that. We're all made in the Lord's image. And so, we are here to love each other and not oppress each other, or not uh, judge and persecute people how we believe, because then we're holding our own justification and our own pride and arrogance accountable. We're holding ourselves up and doing away with what the Lord had said to tell us. So what's interesting is this is second take because, and I don't know if there might be a third or a fourth take, but hopefully I can get through it this time. Last time there was some music, but anyways, so think about that. What kind of thoughts or feelings come to your mind when we read over this? How does it make you feel, and what does it make you think? Let's continue to read. In the 7th year, Jehoiada showed his strength. He made a covenant with the commanders of units of 100. Azariah, son of Jehoram, Ishmael, son of Jehohanan, Azariah, son of Obed, Messiah, son of Adiah, and Elishaphat, son of Zikri. They went through Judah and gathered the Levites and the heads of Israelite families from all the towns. When they came to Jerusalem, the whole assembly made a covenant with the king at the temple of God. Jehoiada said to them, "The king's son shall reign as the Lord promised concerning the descendants of David. Now this is what you are to do. A third of you, priests and Levites, who are going to duty on the Sabbath, are to keep watch at the doors. A third of you at the royal palace, and a third at the foundation gate. And all the other men are to be in the courtyards of the temple of the Lord. No one is to enter the temple of the Lord except the priests and Levites on duty. They may enter because they are consecrated, but all the other men are to guard what the Lord has assigned to them. The Levites are to station themselves around the king, each man with his weapons in his hand. Anyone who enters the temple must be put to death. Stay close to the king wherever he goes." So they're guarding the child, basically, allowing him to grow up at least somewhat, so that they're not just promoting him to kingship when he is a baby. And so he will still be young when he does actually become king, but they didn't want an infant. And they knew that trying to do that would possibly cause concern for the people and the council themselves. So because they really want to believe that the baby is making the decisions, they would think that someone else is making those decisions for them. So let's continue to read. The Levites and all the men of Judah did just as Jehoiada the priest ordered. Each one took his men, those who were going on duty on the Sabbath, those who were going off duty, for Jehoiada the priest had not released any of the divisions. Then he gave the commanders of the units of 100 the spears and large and small shields that had belonged to King David and that were in the temple of God. He stationed all the men, each with his weapon in his hand, around the king near the altar and the temple, from the south side to the north side of the temple. Jehoiada and his sons brought out the king's sons and put the crown on him. They presented him with a copy of the covenant and proclaimed him king. They anointed him and shouted, "Long live the king." Now I'm going to check something because I want to make sure that this is currently recording. One moment. Okay, we're good. Sometimes I forget to hit the record button. That'll probably be edited out, hopefully. Okay, let's continue to read. um, okay, so north side kingdom temple station. Okay, Jehoiada and his sons brought out the king's son and put the crown on him. They presented him with a copy of the covenant and proclaimed him king. They anointed him and shouted, "Long live the king!" When Athaliah heard the noise of the people running and cheering the king, she went to them at the temple of the Lord. She looked, and there was the king, standing by his pillar at the entrance. The officers and the trumpeters were beside the king, and all the people of the land were rejoicing and blowing trumpets, and singers with musical instruments were leading the praises. Then Athaliah tore her robes and shouted, "Treason! Treason!" Jehoiada the priest sent out the commanders of units of 100 who were in charge of the troops and said to them, "Bring her out between the ranks and put to the sword anyone who follows her." For the priests had said, "Do not put her to death at the temple of the Lord." So they seized her as she reached the entrance of the horse gate on the palace grounds, and there they put her to death. Jehoiada then made a covenant that he and the people and the king would be the Lord's people. All the people went to the temple of Baal and tore it down. They smashed the altars and idols and killed Mattan, the priest of Baal, in front of the altars. Then Jehoiada placed the oversight of the temple of the Lord in the hands of the priests, who were Levites, to whom David had assignments in the temple, to present the burnt offerings of the Lord as written in the law of Moses, with rejoicing and singing, as David had ordered. He also stationed doorkeepers at the gates of the Lord's temple, so that no one who was in any way unclean might enter. He took with them the commanders of hundreds, the nobles, the rulers of the people, and all the people of the land, and brought the king down from the temple of the Lord. They went into the palace through the upper gate and seated the king on the royal throne, and all the people of the land rejoiced, and the city was quiet, because Athaliah had been slain with the sword. So, keynotes there. In the city was quiet because Athaliah had been slain with the sword. So, during this time where Athaliah ruled for the years that she did, I believe it was 6 years or something, correct me if I'm wrong, she was leading Israel astray. She worshipped the Baals and the Asherah poles and such, and she did evil. And so the Israel, or Judah, was not having a good time. There was all kinds of stuff going on, all kinds of bad things going on, murders, what have you. Things, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it was not a good time for Judah. And so once Judah corrected itself appropriately, because the Lord, put in place key people, then boom, everything was peaceful again. Goes to show you a lot. Think about it from past to present. Think about it in our lives. When we are walking with the Lord, things go very well. They go good. We may get tested or so, but when we have that walk, things are going appropriately. But when we go off, things start becoming not normal. Things maybe even become a disaster. So think about that in our lives. What kind of thoughts or feelings come to your mind? How does it make you feel, and what does it make you think? Let's continue to read. Joash repairs the temple. It's a warm day and it's humid. Joash was 7 years old when he became king, and he reigned in Jerusalem 40 years. His mother's name was Zibiah. She was from Beersheba. Joash did what was right in the eyes of the Lord all the years of Jehoiada the priest. So take note. He did what was right in the eyes of the Lord all the years of Jehoiada the priest. Jehoiada chose 2 wives for him, and he had sons and daughters. Sometime later, Joash decided to restore the temple of the Lord. He called together the priests and Levites and said to them, "Go to the towns of Judah and collect the money due annually from all Israel to repair the temple of your God. Do it now." But the Levites did not act at once. Therefore the king summoned Jehoiada the chief priest and said to him, "Why haven't you required the Levites to bring in from Judah and Jerusalem the tax imposed by Moses, the servant of the Lord, and by the assembly of Israel for the tent of the testimony?" Very good questions. These are good questions. And Jehoiada was a person that followed the Lord. So these are very good questions. And Okay. Let's try to pick up where I left off. There we go. Okay. Move downstream a little bit. Okay. So I may have to move again. We'll see. Alright. So, of course, we were just talking about Athalia. Now she's been killed and the area has peace. And the question was, like, when things aren't, when we are led astray, things get wild for us too. Think about that. So what kind of thoughts or feelings come to your mind? How does it make you feel and what does it make you think? This video is going to be in pieces. I'm going to say that now, and I'll have to be editing it because there's been some interruptions. It's just, and that's okay. Life happens, right? Okay, let's continue to read. Joash repairs the temple. Joash was 7 years old when he became king. Okay, so I think I read this part, but I'm going to read it again. Joash was 7 years old when he became king, and he reigned in Jerusalem 40 years. His mother's name was Zebiah. She was from Beersheba. Joash did what was right in the eyes of the Lord all the years of Jehoiada the priest. Take note, because saying he did everything that was right in the eyes of the Lord all the years of Jehoiada the priest. So take note of that. Jehoiada chose 2 wives for him, and he had sons and daughters. Sometime later, Joash decided to restore the temple of the Lord. He called together the priests and Levites and said to them, "Go to the towns of Judah and collect the money due annually from all Israel to repair the temple of your God. Do it now." But the Levites did not act at once. Therefore, the king summoned Jehoiada the chief priest and said to him, "Why haven't you required the Levites to bring in from Judah and Jerusalem the tax imposed by Moses, the servant of the Lord, and by the assembly of Israel for the tent of the testimony?" So this is where I left off, I believe, before I had to move. So past to present, or what Joash was saying to Jehoiada is correct. You know, he's wanting to know, and Jehoiada was a follower of the Lord. It was almost like a reminder. So think about that, past to present. It is okay to say something, especially if you go to the church or someplace, synagogue, what have you, and it's okay to help somebody stay on track. You know, sometimes we get words mixed up. Sometimes we say incorrect passages or incorrect, like, locations and such. It's okay to help somebody, correct them, you know, as long as it's correcting them as in with love. It's not judging them, or it's not putting them down for, oh, you know, you don't even know where John 3:16 is. You know, that verse is in John, not in Matthew or whatever. It's okay to watch your tact, watch your approach. It's okay for correction, and that's what even the Book of Wisdom, which is the Bible, says. This can be used for correction. You can always help somebody out and correct things, and it all also depends on approach and tact when talking to people about things. You also want to understand and be in their shoes. Not one of us in life has been 100% correct all the time. So, and if you have, you need to read this book called the Bible and really think and take a moment to think about what comes out of our mouths. So with that, what kind of thoughts or feelings come to your mind? How does it make you feel and what does it make you think? Let's continue to read. So like I mentioned, it's okay to question, or it's okay to talk to and correct, even in churches and places where you don't feel like you can or should. It's okay, you know, pray about it and get peace and obtain that peace. Okay. Therefore, now the sons of that wicked woman Athaliah had broken into the temple of God and had used even its sacred objects for the Baals. At the king's command, a chest was made and placed outside at the gate of the temple of the Lord. A proclamation was then issued in Judah and Jerusalem that they should bring to the Lord the tax that Moses, the servant of God, had required of Israel in the desert. All the officials and all the people brought their contributions gladly, dropping them into the chest until it was full. Whenever the chest was brought in by the Levites to the king's officials, and they saw that there was a large amount of money, the royal secretary and the officer of the chief priest would come and empty the chest and carry it back to its place. They did this regularly and collected a great amount of money. The king and Jehoiada gave it to the men who carried out the work required for the temple of the Lord. They hired masons and carpenters to restore the Lord's temple, and also workers in iron and bronze to repair the temple. Then the men in charge of the work were diligent, and the repairs progressed under them. They rebuilt the temple of God according to its original design and reinforced it. When they had finished, they brought the rest of the money to the king and Jehoiada, and with it were made articles of the Lord's temple, articles for the service and for the burnt offerings, and also dishes and other objects of gold and silver. As long as Jehoiada lived, burnt offerings were presented continually in the temple of the Lord. Now Jehoiada was old and full of years, and he died at the age of 130. He was buried with the kings in the city of David because of the good he had done in Israel for God and his temple. So Jehoiada, look at him, he had a long, full life. He lived to 130. He was a priest of the Lord, and can again take note, Joash followed Jehoiada's leadership, throughout his life. So that goes to show even more mature people in our lives. Some would say elderly. I'd say more mature. I don't say old, because if you go back in previous Bible study, one of the Bible studies I talked about that, how it was very urgently and sternly corrected. But more mature, you have some wisdom there, and I'm not specifically speaking like it's 100% always all the time, but it's in this case it's showing that Jehoiada had wisdom because he followed the Lord, and Joash saw that wisdom and followed along. Unfortunately, slowly it's going to start to end, but because he loses, he doesn't, Joash may not have confidence in himself, or there may be some other key players there, but anyways, think about that, past to present. Think about it in our lives. Do you have somebody who's a peer, or somebody that you can look up to for guidance, for wisdom? Because the Lord can speak through anybody, really. So think about that. What kind of thoughts or feelings come to your mind? How does it make you feel, and what does it make you think? Okay, one moment. Okay, well, let's continue to read. The wickedness of Joash. After the death of Jehoiada, the officials of Judah came and paid homage to the king, and he listened to them. They abandoned the temple of the Lord, the God of their fathers, and worshipped Asherah poles and idols. Because of their guilt, God's anger came upon Judah and Jerusalem. Although the Lord sent prophets to the people to bring them back to him, and though they testified against them, they would not listen. Then the Spirit of God came upon Zechariah, son of Jehoiada the priest. He stood before the people and said, This is what God says. Zechariah. So I believe this is the same. Please correct me if I'm wrong in comments. Zechariah that we're going to read. There's a whole book for. This is what God says. Why do you disobey the Lord's commands? You will not prosper because you have forsaken the Lord. He has forsaken you. But they plotted against him, and by order of the king, they stoned him to death in the courtyard of the Lord's temple. King Joash did not remember the kindness Zechariah's father Jehoiada had shown him, but killed his son, who said, as he lay dying, May the Lord see this and call you to account. So take note of this. This is almost like, not kind of like a prophecy, kind of like, you're doing me wrong and the Lord's taking notice. So think about that. At the turn of the year, the army of Aram marched against Joash. It invaded Judah and Jerusalem and killed all the leaders of the people. They sent all the plunder to their king in Damascus. Although the Aramean army had come with only a few men, the Lord delivered into their hands a much larger army, because Judah had forsaken the Lord and the Lord their God. The Lord, the God of their fathers. Judgment was executed on Joash. When the Aramean Arameans withdrew. They left Joash severely wounded. His officials conspired against him for murdering the son of Jehoiada, the priest, and they killed him in his bed. So he died and was buried in the city of David, but not in the tombs of kings. Those who conspired against him were Zebad, son of Shemeith, an Ammonite woman, and Jehozabad, son of Shimrith, a Moabite woman. The account of his sons, the many prophecies about him, and the record of the restoration of the temple of God are written in the annotations on the book of the kings, and Amaziah, his son, succeeded him as king. So, there you have it. He ended up passing away because things that he had done was taken into account. And 1 second, I have to move. And so, that was his downfall. What kind of thoughts or feelings come to your mind? How does it make you feel, and what does it make you think? Let's continue to read. Amaziah, king of Judah. Amaziah was 25 years old when he became king, and he reigned in Jerusalem 29 years. His mother's name was Jehoiada. She was from Jerusalem. He did what was right in the eyes of the Lord, but not wholeheartedly. After the kingdom was firmly in his control, he executed the officials who had murdered his father, the king. Yet he did not put their sons to death, but acted in accordance with what is written in the law, the book of Moses, where the Lord commanded, fathers shall not be put to death for their children, nor children put to death for their fathers. Each is to die for his own sins. I don't know if my whole head's in the shot or not. It's okay though. Amaziah called the people of Judah together and assigned them according to their families to commanders of thousands and commanders of hundreds for all Judah and Benjamin. He then mustered those 20 years old or more and found that there were 300,000 men ready for military service, able to handle the spear and shield. He also hired 100,000 fighting men from Israel for 100 talents of silver. There was a mistake right there, so take note. But a man of God came to him and said, O king, these troops from Israel must not march with you, for the Lord is not with Israel, not with any of the people of Ephraim. Even if you go and fight courageously in battle, God will overthrow you before the enemy, for God has the power to help or to overthrow. So, remember at this time, Israel had been split into two. So there was the one tribe with with Judah, right, and a little bit of another tribe, but then the rest of the other tribes, the other 10 tribes, were Israel. So Israel and Judah, and Israel, the rest of Israel have fallen away, like majority. There were some few that followed the Lord, but majority of them at this time didn't follow the Lord. They followed what have you. So take note of that. Let's continue to read. Amaziah asked the man of God, but what about the 100 talents I paid for these Israelite troops? So you can already tell that this was one of those times when Amaziah was not really thinking. He was thinking about the money, not just the money, but he was thinking about earthly things. He wasn't communicating with the Lord, right? So think about that, past, present. Do we think about material things today, especially? Right here. I do it. Sometimes I do it and not even thinking. Sometimes I do it thinking about it. Guilty as charged, man. And I ask for forgiveness. I ask the Lord just to look over or help me not really care about certain things. I mean, there's something even right now that I've been thinking about over and over again, and I'm just like, just do it, just do it and just don't think about it, because it's nothing, so but what kind of thoughts or feelings come to your mind when reading this? How does it make you feel, and what does it make you think? Let's continue to read. The man of God replied, the Lord can give you much more than that. There's our answer, right? So Amaziah dismissed the troops who had come to him from Ephraim and sent them home. They were furious with Judah and left for home in a great rage. Amaziah then marshaled his strength and led his army to the valley of Salt, where he killed 10,000 men of Seir. The army of Judah also captured 10,000 men alive, took them to the top of a cliff and threw them down, so that all were dashed to pieces. Meanwhile, the troops that Uzziah had sent back and had not allowed to take part in the war raided Judean towns from Samaria to Beth-horon. They killed 3,000 people and carried off great quantities of plunder. When Uzziah returned from slaughtering the Edomites, he brought back the gods of the people of Seir. He set them up as his own gods. So remember back in Kings or whatever, Second Kings I think it was, when it was like Uzziah was doing all this great stuff and then all of a sudden he got defeated. This is our notice, and this is our information that was left out, is that after he did all this, he ended up taking the gods of the people that he defeated, right, and started worshiping them. Where did that come from? You know, sometimes we as humans can be stupid and not even know it, and it happens more than we know. What kind of thoughts or feelings come to your mind when we go over this? How does it make you feel, and what does it make you think? Okay, let's continue to read. Okay. He brought out the gods. He set them up as his own gods, bowed down to them, and burned sacrifices to them. The anger of the Lord burned against Uzziah, and he sent a prophet to him, who said, "Why do you consult these people's gods, which could not save their own people from your hand?" While he was still speaking, the king said to him, "Have we appointed you an advisor to the king? Stop. Why be struck down?" So the prophet stopped, but said, "I know that God has determined to destroy you because you have done this, and have not listened to my counsel." After Amaziah, king of Judah, consulted his advisors, he sent this challenge to Joash, son of Joahaz, the son of Jehu, king of Israel. "Come meet me face to face." But Joash, king of Israel, replied to Amaziah, king of Judah, "A thistle in Lebanon sent a message to a cedar in Lebanon, 'Give your daughter to my son in marriage.' Then a wild beast in Lebanon came along and trampled the thistle underfoot. You say to yourself that you have defeated Edom, and now you are arrogant and proud. But stay at home. Why ask for trouble and cause your own downfall, and that of Judah also?" Amaziah, however, would not listen, for God so worked that he might hand them over to Joash, because they sought the gods of Edom. So Joash, king of Israel, attacked. He and Amaziah, king of Judah, faced each other at Beth Shemesh in Judah. One moment. Okay. A lot of fishing going on. And Judah was routed by Israel, and every man fled to his home. Joash, king of Israel, captured Amaziah, king of Judah, the son of Joash, the son of Uzziah, at Beth Shemesh. Then Joash brought him to Jerusalem and broke down the wall of Jerusalem from Ephraim gate to the corner gate, a section about 600 feet long. He took all the gold and silver and all the articles found in the temple of God that had been in the care of Obed-Edom, together with the palace treasures and the hostages, and returned to Samaria. Amaziah, son of Joash, king of Judah, lived for 15 years after the death of Joash, son of Joahaz, king of Israel. As for the other events of Amaziah's reign, from beginning to end, are they not written in the book of the kings of Judah and Israel? From the time that Amaziah turned away from following the Lord, they conspired against him in Jerusalem, and he fled to Lachish. They sent men after him to Lachish and killed him there. He was brought back by horse and was buried with his fathers in the city of Judah. So as you can see, the Amaziah ended up passing away, ended up dying because of his separation of his self. His kind of like self-righteousness started to come into play. Dependence on himself, dependence on other things except for the Lord. So think about that. What kind of thoughts or feelings come to your mind? How does it make you feel? What does it make you think? All right, let's do a quick review. Started in 21, Joram, king of Judah. We also went to Uzziah, king of Judah. And we talked about Athaliah and Joash. Joash repairs the temple, the wickedness of Joash. Amaziah, king of Judah. And then how he was led astray and passed away. Think about that. So reading over today's Bible study, what kind of thoughts or feelings come to your mind? How does it make you feel, and what does it make you think? All right, thank you so much for joining me in yet another Lamp Bible study. I hope we continue to seek the Lord's wisdom together in His holy word. Lamp Bible, please continue to pray for me. I will always continue to pray for you. Lamp Bible study comes out every Tuesday and Thursday on YouTube channel, as well as highlights throughout the week, and also flashlights. There's stuff going on behind me, so I'm a little distracted. If you have any questions, comments, leave them in the comment section. You can leave them on the YouTube page or the Instagram page. If you want to do more or be a part of Lent Bible Study, you can reach out. There is a email on the contact page on the YouTube channel. So wherever you are, have a blessed day, or a blessed morning, a blessed day, a blessed afternoon, a blessed evening, and a blessed night. God bless. Okay, so that's